An island like our own, Taiwan is a democracy where free markets and the rule of law are valued and upheld. Reverence of liberty and respect for fair governance are treasured by the Taiwanese, just as they in countries are across the free world. Yet Taiwan is also unique. It has a beautiful culture born out of the many peoples and countries that have touched the island. But within this diversity, Taiwan shares elements of a common culture with its Chinese cousins. They speak Mandarin. They gather every year to celebrate the same traditions as the Chinese mainland. For example, just this month, millions of Taiwanese celebrate the beginning of the Lunar New Year, and I'm sure everyone will join me in wishing them well in the Year of the Tiger.
Hear, hear.
But Taiwan has always been distinct. Following the fall of the Ming Dynasty in 1644, Taiwan was ruled from the emergent Qing Dynasty in Beijing. The Kangxi Emperor, who ruled China for longer than any other, said of the island, "We gain nothing by possessing it, and it would be no loss if we did not acquire it."
On that point, will she allow me?
Absolutely.
To what extent does she believe that following our withdrawal from Afghanistan, the government of China is watching very closely our resolve in the face of threats to Ukraine, as it assesses what it might do with regard to its ambitions in the South China Sea?
I thank my honourable friend for that comment, and he is absolutely right that autocratic governments across the world are now questioning our resolve, questioning our ability to go in and defend our neighbours, and particularly to uphold the values of democracy. And I will elucidate more on that point if he gives me a little time. Now, whilst the pomposity of that comment and that attitude about Taiwan does not reflect the immense value of this nation, it does, however, highlight the novelty of the Chinese claims to the island. China did not always claim the right to govern Taiwan, and this is important to understand the current tensions as we look at recent developments. But Taiwan has also not always been the democracy that we see today. The years after the Second World War saw the emergence of a one-party nationalist state with political widespread repression. Beginning in the 1980s, however, Taiwan pursued democratic reform. Building upon the rapid economic growth post-war, the island became a multi-party, rules-based democracy. Known as the Taiwan Miracle was this transformation. The Economist Global Democracy Index now shows just how far Taiwan has come, and I doubt many members would know that Taiwan is ranked as the 11th most democratic country on earth and the #1 most democratic country in Asia, according to The Economist, and that is quite an outstanding achievement. Because Taiwan is therefore the living, breathing truth that societies rooted in Chinese culture are capable of developing into free market, democratic and rules-respecting members of the international community. And it is this truth that explains why the Chinese Communist Party fears Taiwan so greatly. Because as long as Taiwan exists, the world will know that government does not need to be defined by control, repression and even genocide, as we have seen under the Chinese Communist Party. When Xi Jinping claims that Taiwan has always been part of China, he is using a false narrative to pursue his political agenda. Absolutely.
I thank the honourable member for giving way. And I wonder if she would agree with me that the problem we have at the moment is that there seems to be an absence of a strategy from the government towards China and its relationship with Taiwan. And does she feel that we do need something urgently to fill that gap, or China will, as the other honourable member has said, be looking very closely at our reactions, and perhaps its own actions will be influenced by that lack of strategy?
I thank the Honourable Lady. I very much agree that we need a cross-government strategy on China, but I think she will probably hear from the Minister later some relief on that subject, because I believe that a cross-government strategy is currently being developed, and it looks like officials in the box are relieved that I'm saying it so. So we will wait to hear later. Please, of course.
Some people have often said that China has adopted a patient attitude to Taiwan and thinks that it eventually will somehow fall into China's lap. Is it not important that we have a cross-party, a cross-house, a whole nation approach to this in the UK, and we have just as much, just as deep a well of patience as China has?
I think my honourable friend puts it incredibly well, and I agree with him. China believes it's on the ascendant. It needs to simply wait it out until the UK and the US lose their ability to maintain an international rules-based order, and then they can occupy Taiwan. I think the member puts it very well when he says, we too are watching and we too will wait and we will stand by our allies. And he is absolutely right when he says we need a cross-party approach. And I believe under my honourable friend's chairmanship, we see exactly that on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Now, the current tensions in Taiwan must be seen as what they are, the direct result of the emergence of democracy and the Chinese Communist Party's own insecurity. A modern, successful and democratic Chinese society. So when people ask why we should care about an island on the other side of the globe, I say the answer is simple. Taiwan represents the best of democracy, and the United Kingdom must always take the side of democracy and our friends trying to uphold its values. Now, over the last few years, we in this House have watched with dismay as the Chinese Communist Party has stripped away the freedoms and liberties of our friends in Hong Kong. The implementation of the national security law that has transformed a vibrant and open society into a repressive Orwellian nightmare, where a teenager faces prison for voicing slightly critical views on social media. Now, whilst we all mourn the loss of those freedoms, I would urge members that we cannot fall into a state of resignation because our friends in Taiwan need more than that. Therefore, Madam Deputy Speaker, I would like to discuss the three areas that bind the interests of the United Kingdom to Taiwan: that of economic cooperation, international recognition, security and regional stability. The UK and Taiwan already enjoy a fruitful trading relationship. £7.2 billion of goods and services were exchanged in 2020 alone. Taiwan, as we all know, is the leading producer of semiconductor chips, the micro-engines of our modern world. From mobile phones to our fighter planes that make up the Royal Air Force, the importance of these chips cannot be overstated. But there has been a shortage in recent years, leading both the EU and the USA to implement strategies to maintain their access, and we must do the same. Sensing an opportunity, the Chinese Communist Party is already moving to try and dominate this market. I suspect they won't be able to because of the high-quality workmanship needed to create them. Only last year, however, China purchased the UK's largest producer of semiconductor chips, Newport Wafer Fab. I oppose this takeover, the Foreign Affairs Committee opposed this, and I would urge the government to continue to do more to protect industries of special national interest. We cannot be selling it off. We must seek to produce and protect our own production capabilities and foster trading relationships with democracies who will protect supply chains. Now, a trade deal with Taiwan, Madam Deputy Speaker, would not only ensure access to these semiconductor chips, but help the UK achieve our net zero targets without compromising on our morals. Now, in my constituency of Rotterdam Melton, there is a 2,175-acre solar plant proposed on good agricultural land, which is being developed by a de facto Chinese company with supply chains reaching into Xinjiang, the site of the Chinese Communist Party's genocide. I will not see Rutland soil tainted by mass human rights atrocities, and I would urge the government to pursue a bilateral trade deal so that, because we know that they produce quality solar panels free of Uyghur blood labour. Taiwan is a country committed to net zero by 2050, producing high-quality green technology, and it shares our democratic morals. What better partner for a trade deal? So let us strike a trade deal to begin to develop the alternative supply chains that we need, to free Taiwan and to a lesser extent ourselves from economic reliance on the Chinese mainland, and let's focus on high-quality technologies and renewables. There is opportunity for us and them. Now, the UK is also in the process of joining the CPTPP. We have recognised the shift in global wealth and power towards the Indo-Pacific, and global Britain is rightly stepping up to that. But as we pivot towards Asia, we must have someone to lean on, and Taiwan could play an important role in this. Now, we're all aware of the limitations that have been placed upon Taiwan globally. Despite having the 21st largest economy and a population of 24 million, Taiwan is still barred from meaningful participation in much of the international order. Despite tens of millions of passengers passing through its airports, Taiwan hasn't been represented in the International Civil Aviation Organization since 2014. This is illogical, and the UK must support their readmittance to this body. Absolutely, to my good friend.
My honourable friend is making an absolutely powerful case about Taiwan's place in the international community and its role in international bodies. Would she agree with me that this isn't just about Taiwan? This is actually about us as well. What we have seen from the absence of Taiwan's voice on the World Health Organization is a worse performance against COVID, against the Wuhan virus that emerged under Chinese tutelage? And would she not agree with me that what we are actually seeing is a damaged response and a worse ability for the British people to protect themselves because China has decided, for its own selfish reasons, to bully and silence Taiwan?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. I think there is no question that the Taiwanese response to COVID was transparent, one of friendship, one of education, one of reaching out, and yet the international community somehow closed their doors to them. Not only are they barred from the World Health Organization, the World Health Assembly, but they were expelled from their observer position. This is not acceptable for a country who had impressive contact tracing, border controls, and an Orwellian rejection of Orwellian restrictions that other countries put in place. Now, despite a never-ending cover-up, absolutely I will.
Lady for giving way, and she's making an excellent speech. As she's rightly pointed out, Taiwan is not only a beacon of liberal democracy, it is also a beacon of scientific cooperation and has showed huge expertise in terms of the way it's dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic. She has rightly called for Taiwan to be readmitted with observer status to the WHO. Could she set out what specific and tangible steps she thinks the British government should be taking to lobby the international community to make that happen? And when does she think we should start seeing some more tangible action from the British government in that context?
I thank my honourable friend. We know that there are partners across the world who wish to support us in upholding the rights and opportunities of our democratic partners. We should be forming constellations of alliances in every multilateral organisation, every multilateral zone, where we lobby and work together. Whether it be making sure that we get the right president of Interpol, all the way through to making sure that we have friends like the Taiwanese at the table or with observer status. These are things the UK can lead on because no nation in the world is better at convening other nations than the UK. If we put our mind to it, we can achieve it. But I do also wish to make the point that we must be careful to avoid an unnecessary clash with China in which Taiwan becomes collateral damage and is caught in the middle. The current settlement has maintained peace for 40 years and we should never underestimate the importance and value of peace. We must be careful, therefore, in the framing of our relationship and duties to Taiwan, because the emergence of full-blown US-China or UK-China strategic rivalry risks increasing Taiwan's place in political rhetoric between our nations, becoming a lightning rod for international agitation and a signal or a de facto signal for how strong a country is or is not standing up to the Chinese Communist Party. Now, whilst this might be easy to fall into, or even attractive, our Taiwanese friends deserve more meaningful engagement from all of us in this place. It should not be because Taiwan is a useful pawn in our wider competition or debates, whether it is. So I would urge the Minister to ensure that we pursue meaningful engagement with Taiwan and that we act tactfully. Because when we call, and when I call, for Taiwan to have greater international recognition, it's on account of their democracy, their expertise, and as a free market friend, not as a tool in a wider struggle. Because there are things we can learn from them, and we must, as we establish this new constellation of alliances around the world. And we must also be alert to the risk of framing Taiwan as smaller cousins of a great beast, because they deserve better than that. They are not an embattled people withstanding increasing pressure from the authoritarian communist mainland who sit waiting to launch an invasion. Taiwan is a strong, thriving economy, society and friend, and we must support them in the measured and diplomatic manner that they deserve. Now, a first step, I would argue, would be a round of ministerial visits, and I hope the Minister can arrange reciprocal visits, particularly perhaps of a minister at cabinet level who could represent across all of government, given we recognise the restrictions around particular departments engaging. I also call on formal recognition to be given to the Taipei Representative Office and for meaningful political dialogue. Indeed, His Excellency, and I call him this on purpose, the Ambassador of Taiwan, is observing the state debate today. He joins us in the chamber, and I'm sure we all wish to extend our welcome to him. Now, what a gesture it would be if we were to consider granting his office, which serves Taiwan with great distinction, a legal diplomatic status. Now, I've already spoken about the strength of Taiwan's democracy, the unique culture of its people and the immense contribution it can and wants to make internationally. But all of this is at risk. The 40 years of peace preserved under the principle that Taiwan is a part of China, which we recognise but do not necessarily believe in fully, is being tested. Xi Jinping has committed himself to the political reunification, or the Great Rejuvenation as he calls it, of Taiwan and China, including through the use of force. In just 27 days, in 2022 so far, Taiwan has suffered over 148 threatening flights by Chinese aircraft into the Air Defence Identification Zone, threatening Taiwanese Air Force and a concerted campaign to erode their confidence as well as freedom of navigation within the Taiwanese Strait. Now, the UK is committed to the international rules-based order, and I welcome that the Royal Navy's flagship, the Queen Elizabeth, went to the Taiwan Strait last year. I'd also like to praise the government on getting Taiwan onto the agenda during the recent G7 meeting under our presidency. This is the sort of forward-thinking engagement that we need, but we must do more. We cannot sit back and wait for any tragedy such as that in Hong Kong to occur again. We must act, and we must act now. And so I ask the Minister to work with our allies around the world to engage with those nations who respect freedom and have the same concerns as we do, to set in place deterrence diplomacy to protect our Taiwanese friends, to ensure that we are monitoring, perhaps in the conflict zone that was recently established, the increasing grey zone hostilities against Taiwan, so we can measure the incremental and subtle escalations that are taking place. But that we also look at resilience building with our Taiwanese friends, whether helping them counter disinformation campaigns, developing supply chain resilience, or ensuring they can retain access to markets worldwide, which would surely be one of the first places that China would seek to hurt them. We've all been impressed by the swift actions of this government in Ukraine, but now we must show that we are truly a global Britain and will act worldwide. Also, that we will learn from our allies. Absolutely.
Congratulate my honourable friend on this debate today. It's long overdue, and on that very point, the Foreign Secretary has been in Russia this week, showing steely determination to stand up to Russia about the way they are behaving with Ukraine. Do we need the same kind of steely determination showed towards Beijing in their attitude towards Taiwan, Hong Kong, and their general behaviour in that part of the world?
I thank my honourable friend, who has been a long-term advocate and friend to the Taiwanese people. The issue is that for too long, autocratic countries around the world have seen no cost when they escalate and escalate and escalate. Whether it is Dodik in Bosnia, or whether it is Putin in Ukraine and around our near neighbourhood, or whether it is China in Hong Kong, or in there all around, domestically in those countries around them, I fear greatly that we fail to bring costs to bear that matter at our own peril. Look at the situation in Ukraine. Putin has achieved much in the last few weeks. We have given him the world status that he's been craving. America, France, England, all going to his call, going to Moscow to be called equal to him on the world stage. But also we've given tacit agreement to him that those borders he's already occupied are now his to keep. Just don't go any further, we say. That is not enough. That is not a cost. Putin has won greatly in the last few weeks. I wish to finish, Madam Deputy Speaker, by talking about the fact that whilst we all recognise the threats facing democracy today, how we respond in this place matters, because it defines the future of the United Kingdom. And we know that around the world, parliaments are watching us, they are listening to us. And how we respond now will define the rest of this century and our children's future. We are proud of our country for its role in protecting democracy in the past, and we must channel that pride into action. So I would urge all members to raise their voice in support of Taiwan. Let us strike a trade deal that benefits our economy and supports our ally. Let us support their democratic values and their strength in being the #1 economy in democracy in Asia. Let us give Taiwan's representative in the UK the legal status they need, and let us call for Taiwan to be given a voice internationally and be readmitted to both the WHO and the International Civil Aviation Organization. But most importantly, let us make sure that everyone knows that we in this place stand clearly behind the US as the main guarantor of Taiwan's security and our allies in the preservation of peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, and that we know Taiwan has much to offer to the world, and as a friend, it is our duty to make sure that her contribution is heard, accepted and embraced. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.